Okay, so like I said, thank you so much for making time to join us. We really appreciate you taking this time to want to learn. My name is Martha Banerjee. I'm the Executive Director for Bridging Divides, the research program. The purpose of the session is, as I said, to give you an outline of the graduate student stipends, how to apply, when to apply, how much they are, and a bit more information about the research program itself and the theme of employment and lifelong learning. So today we're going to cover a few things about the program, which I'll present. Then we'll talk a bit about the stipends. Rupa will come in to talk about the employment and lifelong learning theme. And we do have one of our current graduate student stipends recipient, Dane Vanderkooi, who's also going to talk about his scholarship experience. We'll then open up the floor for a question and answer session at the end. So the Bridging Divides program is housed at Toronto Metropolitan University. TMU has a 25-year-long history of excellence in migration-related research, policy engagement and innovation, and also migration education. So the university has recognized migration as a strategic priority area for its research since the early 2000s. So we started off with the Toronto Metropolitan Center for Immigration Studies, which was launched in 2001. Then we also built on top of that the Masters in Immigration and Settlement Studies, which was the first of its kind in 2004. In 2009, we established a PhD in policy studies with a focus on migration as well. So based on all of these early investments, a center and two programs, a master's and a PhD, in 2019, TMU was also awarded a Canada Excellence Research Chair in Migration and Integration. This was a research program that was led by Dr. Triandafyllidou. After that, in 2023, we also then received funds from the Canada Excellence Research Fund for a program called Migrant Integration in the Mid-21st Century, or Bridging Divides, which is what is now offering these graduate student stipends. So CERC is coming to an end in July of 2026, but both CERC and Bridging Divides have really increased the global visibility of Toronto Metropolitan University as a migration research leader. So we'll be so excited to have you guys joining in on all of these centers and all the academic programs that focus on migration. I'm going to speak a bit now about the team at Bridging Divides. So we do have Triandafyllidou, who is our scientific director for Bridging Divides, and also she's overseeing the Canada Excellence Research Chain Migration and Integration, the program that I said is going to end in July of next year. Then there's myself. I work with the administration team closely. I'm the executive director for Bridging Divides. Then we do have Dr. Rupa Banerjee, who is a Canada Research Chair in Economic Inclusion, Employment and Entrepreneurship of Canada's Immigrants, and also a theme core lead for employment and lifelong learning at Bridging Divides. We're going to hear a bit more from Rupa later on in the presentation. Before we move forward, I just also wanted to share with you the video where the announcement was made that Bridging Divides had received about $100 million from the Canadian government to study migration. So...
TMU was recently awarded $98.6 million from the federal government to lead innovative research on migration and integration. Scientific Director Triandafyllidou explains how the grant will be used to improve lives across Canada.
For Toronto Metropolitan University, migration has always been one of its strategic priorities, and together with 3 universities, decided to put a bid together that we called Bridging Divides. Our bid answers many of the questions that the federal government is posing on migration and migrant integration. We know that newcomers still face important de-skilling. So we're concerned that divides may be opening up, and that's why our program comes to help bridge those divides. TMU is a university that is looking directly to work with communities, is looking into the labor market, is looking into real life challenges. So while we produce innovative analytical research, we also work very much with usable knowledge and with co-creation with our communities. So I think there couldn't be any better place for this research than TMU. I hope that Bridging Divides will help Canada deliver its promise to the newcomers that will provide to them meaningful jobs, livable cities, inclusive communities, a good place to raise their children, a good place to thrive. And in that sense, it will provide to the promise of Canada to all its citizens for, a sustainable future, resilient communities, equity and inclusion.
Okay. So I can promise you that that research has already started. We started in 2023. We're really, really excited that we now have 81 research projects across 4 universities. We are leading the research program at Toronto Metropolitan Universities, and we work together with University of British Columbia out in Vancouver, University of Alberta in Edmonton, Concordia University in Montreal. So we also are spread out through Canada, and our researchers represent different races, and they're also geographically located in different spaces with experiences spanning different regions of the world. Within the research theme, we also have different thematic areas. So we have 4 of them. The first one is the immigrant health and well-being, which investigates how immigrants, when they come to Canada, how they fare in terms of their health, and also looks at health disparities between immigrants and non-immigrant communities in Canada. We also examine employment and lifelong learning, which Rupa is going to talk about a bit more. A bit of that is that when immigrants come in, usually their education and experiences are not acknowledged in the Canadian economy, so they do not fare as well as the Canadian counterparts. So how do we examine those differences and try to make them better, especially with a focus on advanced digital technologies? We also look at thematic research stream 3, which is place and infrastructure, which is a fancy way of saying cities. So it looks at how cities are designed, how they're modeled. When immigrants come in, can they live in the city that they've settled in? Is there a mosque, for example, where they can go and worship? Do they have a grocery store close by? Or is there a school that their kids can attend? So we look at city design and also how we can improve access to different amenities and infrastructure. In thematic research stream 4, which is called Citizenship and Participation, we examine how immigrants settle and participate either as permanent residents or as citizens. Are they actually able to exercise their civil rights well when they become citizens in Canada? Moving on, our research program just does not offer the graduate student stipends. We do have a lot more offerings in terms of other programs that you can tap into as a graduate student. So we invite different professionals from other parts of the world to come in as civil society and public administration fellows. These are individuals who work in organizations all over the world. They can be nonprofits, they can be government organizations. We invite them to come over for 1 month. So you will be exposed to people who work in migration-related fields, not necessarily in academia, but in other areas. This is important because you might get data from those individuals, or you might get useful connections for your future careers. We also have journalism fellows, which is a bit self-explanatory. We invite journalists who work on migration from different parts of the world. So, for example, we recently hosted a journalist who actually works for AFP and a journalist who works for CoinGeek. The journalist from CoinGeek was coming from India. The journalist from AFP was actually coming to us from Colombia. So it just shows you the diversity of geographic regions that we reach to. We also have Future Leaders Fellows, which is postdoctoral fellows who come and join us. We pair them with a researcher, and then they can conduct research. We have travel grants for individuals who are affiliated with the Bridging Divides Research Program. These travel grants will be available to you if you end up being one of our graduate student stipend students, because you need to go to conferences to present your work. We do have funds for that. And also they can be used if you're going to collect data in the field. We also have other programs like the Migration Data Challenge, where we present data to students who come into teams and compete to analyze this data and present their results as well. This is just a tip of the iceberg. We do have more programs that we did not list here, but we just wanted to show the breadth of the program and that it's not just you receiving the stipend, but you get exposure to potential employers, and you can also participate in many different ways and connect in different ways as well. So how much is the stipend, or what is the funding that you receive as a graduate student coming to join Bridging Divides? For masters, we do have an entrance and existing students stipend. So if you're not yet enrolled at TMU, you can apply for the entrance scholarship, which will award you $20,000 if you're a domestic student and $30,000 if you're an international student. The money is paid out to you on a bi-weekly basis as a stipend. So you can think of it as a salary, but we call it a stipend. We also have a PhD entrance and existing stipend. The funding for these two are pretty different. So PhD students for domestic earn $30,000 and PhD students for international earn $40,000. The whole purpose of the stipend is such that you end up focusing more on your studies and you get to do your research instead of you trying to find different jobs to make ends meet. So I do have some important dates for you to remember as you're going into the application period. So for our MA stipends, the deadline to apply is 1 April of 2026. And for the PhD stipends, the date is a bit earlier, so February 2nd of 2026.
So I am the theme co-lead of the Immigrant Health and Wellbeing theme within the Bridging Device program. There are 4 pillars that you have probably learned about some of them already. In the Immigrant Health and Wellbeing theme, our team, the members who started right from the beginning in 2023, even before that, when we were writing the proposal, and our current team members are all sharing a common vision about health equity. And that's what is really bringing all the projects together. The way that we do research within this theme, so I co-lead with Elizabeth Saywick from UBC. We use multiple methods. So we tap into population-based data analysis so that we are able to actually use large data sets to identify the structural and systemic kind of barriers, facilitators that would promote health equity amongst immigrants. So with the population-based data, it gives us the big picture. At the same time, we also carry out research using mixed methods based on needs or issues that have been identified by communities or service providers who are working with immigrants throughout the life course. So whatever age group issue that came out. And when we integrate these type of methods together, it actually allows innovation. So for instance, population database analysis right now in UBC and also in University of Alberta is also happening in Concordia as well as TMU. We focus on different population, but together the result would be used locally so that we'll engage communities and population and communities that are affected. We will engage also researchers and service providers. So the themes that have been coming out based on this analysis is right now, we're looking at youth mental health and youth sexual health that is led by Elizabeth in UBC. When the data had come out, it actually had led to innovation in a sense that a colleague at University of Alberta who has started working with apps for young people, young immigrants on sexual health now actually had connected with the UBC team, and they will be tapping into resources and further develop this app. And the improvement of the app will be to actually be able to do studies that actually look at sexual health and mental health at the same time with different populations, so they become, a randomized trial. And at the same time, in Alberta and in Ontario, we're looking at food insecurity and how that is associated with mental health amongst youth and seniors. And in Ontario, we're looking at how food insecurity is associated with mental health and addiction in the adult population. We anticipate that once we continue to do the data analysis, there'll be new themes that come out. And what is really great about Bridging Divides is that it's not one research, but it's a program of research and will be responsive to those findings. Another area that we feel very passionate about and we feel proud of is the kind of community-centered co-design initiatives that we are doing. So two great themes that had came out with collaboration between TMU and University of Alberta, and I have also reached out to colleagues in Concordia, is actually community gardening and mental health, and also restorative storytelling and mental health. And when we had done reviews to identify that these two type of strategies had actually been promoting health beyond food security and beyond understanding social identities, but promote mental health as well as decreasing stigma and discrimination across different populations. We are now very committed and passionate to actually merge these issues and the insight that we got from the literature, and we'll be moving forward. And there's a number of co-design that is going on that's brewing. In fact, two of my RAs and I will be visiting the Sin Lab this Friday to talk about how we can also integrate virtual community gardening during winter. As we know, we live in Canada. So the other initiative that come about will be one of our postdoc had completed his research, and so Bridging Divides, in TMU and with my support, will be actually doing co-design with Black communities on reducing mental health stigma in families and communities. So then another part is system change, and another very exciting project that we are doing is actually looking at how we can engage internationally educated health professional nurses to look at their experience of inequities, how it affects their mental health, and at the same time, as they go through intervention, to actually support them to become psychologically flexible and kind of supporting each other and building that type of network. We will be also moving the direction so that there'll be commitment for people who come through to actually champion the type of care that will be provided in the healthcare system that are culturally safe, cultural humility, and inclusive practices that would really provide accessible and safe care to Indigenous, Black, and racialized communities, as well as people who are marginalized because of their social identities, like transgender people and sexual minority people. On top of all this, we also had digital technology that's tied to health. And right now we have a cross-cutting project that is led by Etty, who is actually doing blockchain-based personal health records, which can be used actually across all immigrant population and all age. And the key goal of this is actually how to actually enable immigrant population to have their information kept safe, as well as being with them so that they don't have to go through repeated tests and that type of stuff, in their journey of settlement. And we are also looking at this came from the communities. We're looking at how we can use mobile cultural and linguistic translation app with immigrant seniors in long-term care, because as older adult, whose language is not our official language, as they age and they became frail, they actually revert back to their first language. And this was identified as a need from service providers from long-term care. So we have been following that, and some exciting things are coming out from this because we had also connected with a community health agency that had actually started piloting this type of app. Another newer project is actually looking at trustworthy LLM-based conversation agents. So many of us know that AI is in our world, whether we like it or not. And lots of people are actually tapping into online and ChatGPT and AI to actually seek mental health. So this project would actually produce knowledge and wisdom to let us know how do we make sure that this type of services or this type of resources are actually trustworthy. And another one that we are also doing, our team member, is on connecting care. So how is telehealth access and preference is among actually immigrants in Ontario. So that is using both large data as well as there will be actually data collection from people who actually fit into that. So when we're talking about youth and age, there is also a number of projects that focus on aging. And one is actually really looking at transnational healthcare. What happened to recent immigrants who are older and when they actually came from other regions in the world, and yet accessing healthcare here is, when they encounter lots of barriers, either because of long wait lists, they can't get there, or because of the language and culture, how are they actually tapping into resources or information that is from regions where they immigrated from? And so that is taking place with our Afghan, Syrian, Ukrainian refugees communities. Another one that we had started doing is actually based on requests from the communities. We know that aging is happening across all different social identity groups, and with immigrant LGBTQ plus older adults or seniors, they are constantly being left behind. And one of the key concerns is this a time where older LGBTQ plus racialized immigrants had to go back into the closet as they have to access long-term care or home care? And this actually sparked a lot of discussion. And we recently had conducted a community sharing circle, and we're actually doing the last circle this coming weekend. And lots of issues really came out. And I was able to connect with another colleague in U of Alberta to look at how do we really promote aging in the right place, not only in any place. Then we have the Singing to Promote Integration, Well-being, and Resilience. And this is a very cool project that is actually being used across the lifespan. So now there are younger immigrants and different ages immigrant engaging in this project to look at how this method, this singing, can become a way to learn language. And then this is also a project that has been grounded in working with older adults who experience different kinds of communication challenges. So those are some of the projects, and then there are new ones that will be emerging because Bridging Device is not finishing until 2030. So there's still lots of time, and there are lots of new ideas that come out. And in our theme, and I know across all themes, we are actually pretty responsive. And I personally appreciate the opportunity to innovate and reimagine things and not only be focusing on one project.
Hi, everyone. I just want to apologize in case I have to jump off camera. I got kicked out of the classroom that I was in, and so I'm just trying to find a quiet space so that I'm not out in a hallway. But anyways, So my first RA contract was back in 2023 to 2024. And that's when Dr. Wong invited me into Bridging Divides. And I believe that was the first year that the health and well-being projects were carried out at TMU. And so I'm the student lead on the project on advancing health equity among racialized immigrant LGBTQ plus older adults. More recently, I've been invited to work with one of the other teams to do a concept analysis on the Afrocentric value of Ubuntu, which very briefly emphasizes community responsibility and well-being. And so that kind of speaks to some of the other points that were already brought up in terms of like the many projects that are within one theme. And the opportunity to be invited into those teams and like collaborate on different projects. And so there's many postdocs, graduate and undergraduate students, as well as community leaders who are involved in all of the projects who I've been able to meet through the much larger meetings in the initial stages when we were all deciding like which projects we would want to be a part of, and of course through the various like Bridging Divides events. I would say that the health and well-being theme, we've done a good job of kind of building community and really getting to know each other's strengths. And so it's interesting to be able to like meet each other and chat about like what we want to learn from each other and like what kind of peer support that we can get from each other during this entire like BD process. And so outside of the health and well-being theme, there's many academics and community members in the other themes as well that you get to meet through the various events. I would say one of the highlights for me is the Research Dialogue series. And
That went with the
so
medicine. It's so ironic.
th- and so the Research Dialogue series is a bit more intimate. It's usually a smaller group of folks, and you kind of get to do a deep dive into the projects that are presented there. And for me, it helps stimulate just like a lot of thinking around how other people's work in BD can be like integrated into my own, or if I'm feeling stuck or like feeling isolated, or just like needing to hear a fresh perspective on like what's happening in research, attending the Research Dialogue series is just like a good way to just like get a creative flow going and interacting with like other folks doing research. In terms of co-authoring, so the project that I'm like the student lead on, we're actively working on two manuscripts. One is a scoping review and one is a program scan. And then, as I mentioned, I'm also on that Ubuntu concept analysis. So that's another opportunity for co-authorship. And of course, with that manuscript writing means opportunities to like co-author a community report and like other knowledge dissemination efforts, such as like creating infographics and doing presentations. And so that segues into conference travel, which like Maggie spoke about a little bit earlier. And so I personally can't speak to BD's like travel funding, but I do know that there are many opportunities to apply. Like I believe it's per semester you can apply for conference travel funding, and that communication is like pretty regular in the email newsletters. Um, I will say that I do keep an eye on the funds. I just haven't had to apply for them yet, as I've had the privilege to like access other funding for conference travel. In terms of training, BD, I think, offers like a plethora of training opportunities within the health and well-being theme. We focused on training on how to like conduct a scoping review because that's what many of the teams were doing. And then with the wider Bridging Divides community, the most recent type of training I can remember is like learning how to use ORCID, which is like a research database that helps to amplify your research profile. So just like a lot of opportunities to increase your like research capabilities, your research profile. And again, within the health and well-being theme as well, there's a lot more like informal training opportunities in terms of learning how to write together as a group and always opportunities for us to like reach out to like the postdoc students, for example, in case we're experiencing any challenges around like submitting a manuscript, for example. And then just the last thing that I will talk about is like any other interesting things. From the Bridging Divide stipend. So I think Bridging Divides offers a very nice space at the Eden Center. So if that's like a place that you like to frequent, that's where BD is located. They make sure their events have food, which is always an important draw, and also addresses, you know, food security and just accessibility. And of course, the BD folks are lovely. Working in silo has probably been my biggest challenge on this PhD journey. And so having all these BD like events come my way is a way that keeps me engaged. It keeps me coming in person to things. I get to meet other students and generally just builds that like community slash like peer atmosphere that I'm like usually seeking. And because of the nature of graduate school, like, you know, you might not see these folks regularly. So when you gather in these larger events, it's always nice to have that sense of familiarity with some people and to just like catch up. And on a very different note, the Bridging Divides Research Program is also addressing something very vital, which is like immigration, integration, and well-being. And there's a lot of anti-immigrant discourse happening currently. And so it's good to see that like as academics, as large institutions who hold like some power and a lot of knowledge, that a research program like this exists and that we're trying to create positive systemic change for migrant communities, and that we're continuing to have like critical discussions of how to support communities who face exclusion and marginalization. So that is the last thing that I will say about the Bridging Divides stipend. I'm very grateful for the opportunities that have come my way from it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Martha. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I just have a couple of very small slides to tell you about our theme. So in employment and lifelong learning, our focus is, of course, on labor market and educational outcomes. And so this is kind of a very major aspect of immigrant integration. And so within this theme, I am co-leading it with Suzanne Huat, who is at the UBC. And so we are co-leads of the theme, which means that we really try to coordinate, try to bring together the team members, also really looking to see where synergies might lie. So in that sense, you know, we're more guides than leads, I would say. And we try to kind of see where overlapping interests might actually lie. So just to give a very, very brief outline of why we have the sub-theme of employment and lifelong learning. So of course, we know that newcomers face barriers in the labor market, and it's sort of one of the major aspects of inclusion within a host society, right? So economic inclusion as well as career development, career growth are essential elements of whether a person feels they belong within the society. And so it is a really, really important aspect of the integration side of our project. So we know that issues arise at multiple levels for newcomers. There are supply side barriers, such as issues with professional language ability, or even connections, networks, and professional contacts, which prevent newcomers from really leveraging their skills in the new labor market. On the other side, on the demand side, we also know that there's a lot of issues that employers face in trying to actually recognize immigrants' skills. So a lot of employers don't have the knowledge, don't have the time, the resources to actually figure out if foreign credentials are valuable, are relevant in Canada. And we can't discount bias either, right? So from the demand side, we know that there's a combination of risk aversion, of lack of knowledge, and of bias that often prevents employers from using and utilizing newcomer skills. On the other side, of course, Selection policies play a huge role in who actually comes. And within all of this, there are many intermediaries. There are occupational licensing bodies, there are educational institutions, there are unions, there are consultants, there are lawyers, there are many, many other parties who play important roles to determining whether newcomers can actually successfully integrate into the labor market. So we have 3 sub-themes within our broader theme. The first sub-theme looks at sort of more bread and butter issues of immigrant employment. So we are interested in questions of why immigrants face disadvantages, what the implications of those disadvantages are, and potentially what solutions there could be. We have 8 projects, and this might be growing to one more here. So this is not fixed and static. There's often new projects coming on board all the time. So we have projects looking, using all kinds of methodologies, from qualitative interview-based projects to large data-based quantitative projects, examining a variety of aspects of sort of those bread and butter issues of immigrant integration into the labor market. And then we have sub-theme 2, which gets into the digital technology aspect of bridging divides. So as Martha mentioned, bridging divides isn't just about immigrant integration or migration. It's also about the intersection between those things and advanced digital technologies and the ways in which our world is changing because of those technologies. So this sub-theme really looks at that connection. So we have projects here looking at how digital technologies can change skills training, can change the way that newcomers look for jobs, can change how newcomers are actually assessed in terms of their existing skills. Also, how even other intermediaries like settlement agencies are using advanced digital technologies to help newcomers find work. So all of these really span the disciplinary spectrum. There are psychologists looking at metacognitive skills and how digital technologies can help newcomers find work based on changing their metacognitive skills, all the way to economists who are studying sort of longitudinal earnings growth based on advanced digital technology, etc. And then finally, our third sub-theme is on really the way in which work itself is changing and digital platforms' role in that. So within that, we have 3 projects that essentially look at how AI impacts immigrant workers and businesses, particularly in the post-COVID era. And then also 2 projects that delve into how work is changing and how things like gig work and platform work, remote work has shifted the dynamics of employment integration for newcomers. So here again, all of these 3 themes and sub-themes have all kinds of disciplinary perspectives, different theoretical perspectives, as well as methodologies that are being employed. And the final thing I want to mention before asking for questions is the projects are also at really different stages. There's some that are quite advanced that are already, publishing. There's some that have recently joined and are just in the process of getting ethics approval or in the process of accessing data sets. So we have a very broad range of sort of stages of project as well as disciplinary perspectives. And that's it.
Sure. Before I begin, can everybody hear me? Audio all good?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay, perfect. So, hello everyone. It's nice to see you all and meet some new faces. Before I begin, I'll just introduce myself a little bit before sharing about my experience. But my name is Dane Vanderkooi, and I am a 5th-year PhD candidate in the management program at the Ted Rogers faculty under TMU, and more specifically, and I'm also a stipend recipient, so generously provided by the BD program. So more specifically, I research immigrants' privacy, technology, kind of cultural perspectives, and their impact on the adoption of inclusive digital healthcare technologies like blockchain-based personal health records. So all of this amazing research has been made possible through the BD program. The stipends provided me with the chance to pursue these projects. And in addition, being part of the kind of BD programs provided me with a bunch of these kind of, maybe I'll call them second or third order kind of effects, including the ability to pursue, RA contracts, also provides workplaces for students to conduct their research. One of the other key features of being a BD stipend recipient is the kind of access to an expanded network. So this spans a variety of different disciplines, professors, other collaborators, even going beyond academia, as well as in addition to, networking and access to fellow grad students, right? Doing research can sometimes be kind of a little isolating, especially when you're on your thesis or dissertation. So it's kind of nice to have a bit of a sort of informal sort of support group. In addition, you get exposure to me, one of the benefits is this broad interdisciplinary feature of the program. So I'm from the CRL, the Cybersecurity Research Lab. So most people in my lab have sort of backgrounds in STEM, mathematics, computer science, engineering, which is great. I love those subjects. But BD, I've gotten to meet with journalists, economists, psychologists, architects, like all these different, and immigrant studies, of course, and they're all kind of approaching this, subject of immigration with a different kind of lens, different, ontologies, epistemologies, different research methods, qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods, techniques that are not always used in my field or these other fields. And so you get to kind of break outside that mold a bit and get access to, a wide variety of diverse group of different people from all over, different backgrounds, different beliefs and stuff like that, and all kind of working together towards making Canada a bit more inclusive and equitable place for immigrants. And so, just as an example, I've been able to share some work with the fellow scholars. I shared a paper with Anna, and she said, "Oh, I know two scholars who would be very interested in this," and put me in touch with them, people I never knew from different universities, like beyond TMU, right? And so now we're kind of maybe in the process of working towards collaboration with these scholars. And I'm an expert at security and privacy. I'm not necessarily an expert on immigration or culture, and so I get to hear. She put me in touch with someone who knows that cultural aspect better than I do. Okay, maybe we can work together on some kind of project and, maybe lead to some outcome in terms of like some sort of co-authorship or something like that, right? So a lot of these kind of great opportunities, and it kind of fosters a kind of a more interdisciplinary approach, which I think is what we need for this type of work. In addition to some of these great chances and opportunities, there's also the chance to obtain funding for conference travel, as Martha mentioned. So, for example, one of my papers under BD has actually recently just been accepted for publication in a very prestigious information systems IS research conference called HIGS. It's in Hawaii. And if you look at the plane ticket prices to Hawaii, it's expensive. And the hotels are actually even more expensive, right? And so it's getting the opportunity. I think the stipend, or I think the travel grant's up to $4,000, if I'm not mistaken. It's correct. So that could cover a huge chunk of the travel that you'd either, I'd be paying out of pocket, or maybe, maybe your supervisor has the money, maybe they don't, right? Depending on that, right? Everyone's journey and access to resources could be a little different. And so this kind of makes it a bit more equitable and gives those folks a chance to travel and share their research, present, and meet other scholars, again, career advancement, that kind of stuff. And so, it's a lot of great stuff that's provided. But personally, this is my personal favorite aspect of the BD program are the numerous events that are held. I mean, it's, one example is free training for members, right? So I think just earlier this year, I think it was in March, there was training on like knowledge mobilization, focusing on important topics like stakeholder engagement and ethical knowledge sharing. And this type of training can be quite useful, especially as a graduate student. Some of these subjects may not be touched upon in your classes, right? That side, some stuff is outside of the classroom that you have to kind of figure it on your own. And some of these training sessions can provide that kind of formal knowledge or content or structure to kind of help you navigate academia as you do your studies, right? So my personal actually favorite event that's hosted by BD are the research retreats. So these are kind of, providing the opportunity for BD partners to showcase their work. You get to hear a bunch of different interesting presentations, network with fellow scholars. Usually there's some nice food too as a good bonus. You guys have the best pizza. I can't remember the name that you guys get, but it's like delicious, seriously. And so, getting to hear all this kind of different interesting research. It's not, I love cybersecurity, I love privacy, but sometimes it's nice to hear from a different perspective, covering some other kind of subject matters and stuff. And, and then think, how does this maybe intersect with my work or what's kind of going off, get a bit of a broader kind of meta picture of what's going on. And so I think that's great. And so, not to talk too much, but to summarize, I think the BD program is amazing. I think it really provides a lot of support and resources for graduate students. That's quite frankly unparalleled in my personal experience. And so, and by the way, if anyone would like to, reach out or connect on LinkedIn or anything like that and ask me any more questions or anything, or even after this, we'll have the Q&A, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to discuss the research and work and my experience in further detail if needed. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dane. We only awarded Dane a stipend. We did not pay him to say anything today. Thank you so much for that perspective. You included a whole lot of benefits that I hadn't covered. And from a student's perspective as well, I'm actually glad that you're enjoying some of the offerings that we have and benefiting from them as well.
Everyone, my name is Bilal Farooq. I am the co-lead of Place and Infrastructure team in the Bridging Divide program. If you are curious what Place and Infrastructure team is, in this team, we consider new Canadians as active agents of change and placemaking. To better understand the challenges and opportunities of placemaking as it relates to the infrastructure, and we study 4 different sub-themes, and these 4 sub-themes are social infrastructure, cyber physical service infrastructure, housing markets, and migration, advanced digital technologies, and emerging smart infrastructure technologies pilots. And based on these sub-themes, we have defined about 21 projects that involves more than 50 researchers. We are very actively developing new research, new body of understanding that we try to and develop in the Canadian context in these 4 sub-themes. And the disciplines that are involved, that are currently involved in this theme, we have urban planning, geography, computer science, data science, smart cities, environmental studies, sustainability, architecture, and civil engineering. And within these disciplines, we have several programs where where students can join and students can participate in these various research projects that are going on. So we have a PhD, at PhD level, we have this scholarship offered in architecture, in civil engineering, in computer science. Then at master's level, we have masters of spatial analysis. We have a masters of architecture. We have masters of applied sciences in civil engineering. We have a masters of science in computer science. Masters of Applied Science in Electrical and Computer Engineering, and Masters of Engineering, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship. If you're interested in any of these programs or any of these projects that we are working on, please feel free to contact me or the Bridging Divide team. The Bridging Divide team, they are extremely helpful in figuring out the right fit for you. You would need to connect with a supervisor or a co-supervisor who is part of the Bridging Divide program. But again, if you reach out to us, we'll be able to help you in figuring out the right supervisor for you. All the best, and we hope that you join our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Lina, a PhD civil engineering researcher in Lead Trans Lab at Toronto Metropolitan University. So my work sits at the intersection of transportation, housing, and labor market. And this very much is the spirit of what Bridging Divides is about, connecting people, ideas, and disciplines to solve real problems. I have been awarded the prestigious and competitive Bridging Divide stipend, and I wanted to share what the stipend actually unlocked for me, because the value isn't just in the funding, it's in the doors it opens. Through Bridging Divides, I had access to various rooms, cross-faculty working groups, lab meetings outside my department, and even informal coffee chats that turned into collaborations. I started speaking regularly with planners, computer scientists, social scientists as well, and those conversations reformed the questions I asked and improved how I answered them. It's one thing to create a model, and it's another to hear how a policy scholar or a planner sees your assumptions. The program also made it natural to reach across universities. I personally began co-writing with researchers at Concordia University and had the opportunity to visit it in Montreal to present my work. With Bridging Divide support, I also was able to say yes to high-impact opportunities. A highlight was attending a methods course in Leeds, UK. It upgraded my toolkit and helped me refine my research further. Travel support also meant I could present, get critiqued, come home with a stronger paper and longer list of people to follow up with. Additionally, I was pointed to Scholars of Excellence workshops that focused on specific migration-related issues, workshops on research design, research security, and communicating complex work to non-technical audience. These aren't just glamorous, but they are career-defining, and you leave with workflows that you will keep on using. And to my surprise, the structured feedback from many perspectives, although through seminars, talks, review sessions, my work was gently and sometimes not so gently pulled apart by people who think very different from me. They widened my research and view on my research as well. For example, a political scientist questioned my policy analysis part. A data scientist pushed on validation. I was even asked on equity impacts within my research. So those moments will do more for your research than polishing a draft alone ever could. If you want useful research, you really need that kind of scrutiny. And to place my research in this big picture of bridging divides, across the theme, there is a powerful effort to integrate this research where different lenses can plug in and speak to each other. My contribution is one module that's designed to click into other modules, so we can have study trade-offs in one place rather than in silos. And if we are to speak directly to real-world impact, because that's the question that matters, does any of this leave campus? With bridging divides, yes, and quickly. That shift changed how we talk about what works, who benefits, who doesn't, and why. And even it changed which policies we prioritize in our simulations. One of my favorite parts of the Bridging Divide program was joining the Migration Data Challenge with a team of researchers. So we worked with real data sets and presented our findings to the Bridging Divide team and to officials from the Government of Canada. As a matter of fact, afterwards, a prospective employer contacted us who had seen and they have seen our work and contacted us through the Bridging Divide team to explore next steps. A few other things that prospective students might care about is, firstly, you meet people who remember your name and they send you opportunities throughout the whole process or throughout your way during the journey. Secondly, the stipend and travel grants reduce financial stress just enough that you can focus, finish, and follow through. Lastly, trying a new method or collaborating outside your lane feels less risky when you have institutional backing and peers helping you. If I had to summarize my Bridging Divides journey so far in one sentence, it's this. It turned my PhD from a solo project into a collaborative apprenticeship. The stipend was the spark, but the network, the co-authorships, the training, the feedback, and the push towards impact, that's what keeps it going. So if you're on the fence about getting involved, my advice is simple. Step in, bring your questions, your half-baked ideas. This community gives you the people and the space to turn it into something meaningful. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to chat afterwards about projects, courses, or how to plug your own interests, especially within the place and infrastructure team. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you so much, Lina, for all those insights. You said it better than I ever would. And it's also so good that it's coming from another student. I said this in the previous session. Lina has not been paid to say what she said. She only received the graduate student stipend, and all the benefits that she's talking about are because She's actively involved in the Bridging Divides research program. So we offer events and we offer different networking activities. We encourage our stipend students to attend those, and Lina has been present at most of them, which helps her in terms of the networking that she has been talking about, meeting people, getting comments on her research, and just being present within the Bridging Divides communities. It does open doors. So thank you so much, Lina.
Sorry, I think there was a short delay in my internet connection, but very happy to join you on this opportunity to speak a little bit about the priorities of Bridging Divides under the citizenship and participation theme, which is one of the 4 themes under Bridging Divides. So Bridging Divides is very much about how technology, particularly advanced digital technologies and AI-powered tools, change our lives. And in that sense, they change not only how we work, but also how we connect with each other and how we engage with, for instance, issues that concern our communities, policies, and become active civically. So some of the issues that we're looking at into this in this theme involve, for instance, rates of citizenship acquisition in Canada by immigrants, and whether we're asking whether we're seeing a relative decline of the desire of people to take up Canadian citizenship when they can do so. We're also looking at the meaning of belonging and how Canada's multiculturalism is changing and is evolving through actually the change in the population, but also changes in technology that allow us all to be more connected with distant places, with communities of origin, with transnational diasporas, as well as other types of transnational communities. We're also looking at how technologies are transforming the public sector, so how policy is designed and how policy is implemented, but also the role of civil society. How are civil society organizations embracing or not advanced digital technologies? How do they navigate what may look for them as a minefield because they don't have the necessary technical skills or they don't have the necessary tools or legal protections, and everyone is expecting big and small organizations to jump on the AI train. We're looking into how people can use the technologies both to plan their migration, but also, for instance, to how can I say, take their decisions, where these decisions relate to how and when they come to Canada and their more specific trajectories. In Canada, we all know we're facing a wealth of information that may seem more than a wealth. It may seem like an avalanche of information, an avalanche of data. How do we distinguish between sources we trust and sources that we don't trust? Actually, also the capacities that we have using advanced digital technologies in terms of research methodology and in terms of data creation and data analysis is part of our gamut of themes and issues we want to explore. So for instance, how do new data allow us to have a better glimpse, a better understanding of what is happening in communities across Canada and how people participate, how they engage with one another. Some of the projects that we do look at really having a direct policy impact on whether helping to design evidence-informed policies or working with stakeholders to raise their voices. Other projects can be completely theoretical or analytical in their perspective and engage with more abstract notions of citizenship, membership, and participation. We are a very interdisciplinary program, so you may find people who are from a program in the creative school at TMU, so working with arts, with digital communications, with film. Likewise, we have people from engineering and computer science projects working on cybersecurity. So for instance, how can immigrants keep their data secure as they navigate the immigration process, or how should they deal with giving their data to different types of intermediaries that may facilitate this process. I think what is very particular in our program is that you'll have a large cohort of PhD and MA students, and I know Rica will speak to that, to engage in, to share your concerns, to share the anxieties, particularly of courses, of comps, and so on, but also to be inspired from, to participate together in events. We offer a lot of opportunities of co-organizing events, ranging from, your very first experience to really being an equal co-organizer with one of your mentors. And you will also see people in different disciplines at different moments of their PhD or MA that you can connect with. And with that, I'll pass the baton to Rica to tell us about the student experience.
Thank you very much, Anna. My name is Rica Agnes Castaneda, and I'm a Bridging Divide stipend student and a PhD candidate in policy studies here at TMU. My research interests include migration policy and practice and migration infrastructures, specifically in international education and skilled mobilities. I'm a researcher at CRC in migration integration, and I'm working on projects on migration decision-making among highly skilled migrants to Canada. I'm also a collaborator for one of the BD sub-projects under the Citizenship and Participation theme. So this theme examines the role of advanced digital technologies, or ADTs, in the decision-making of international students and immigrant newcomers to Canada. And I get to share insights I gathered from my own research to this project and work with researchers at various stages of their careers and connect with colleagues that are based in different research institutes across Canada. And so through this BD research program, I was able to gather more interdisciplinary perspectives, especially in thinking about ways to extend one's thinking towards contemporary migration issues. Last spring, I presented my preliminary findings in a BD retreat organized by the Social Media Lab, which I greatly benefited from in terms of feedback and engagement. And so my presentation received, engagement from other disciplines that work on migration adjacent topics, such as information and communication studies. And so the program, not only that, the program also provides generous support and opportunities for research dissemination. And so recently I was at a conference in Victoria, BC. And so thanks to the support of the BD Travel Fund, so I had the opportunity to present my research on migration decision-making and ADTs. And I also organized a roundtable on Southeast Asian mobilities and transnationalism. And so through this opportunity, I had the chance to engage in meaningful discussion with scholars working in the region of Southeast Asia and in diasporas in Canada. And so we talked about emerging issues through the lens of technology, theater, urban development, and education. So this opened opportunities for publication collaboration and cross-fertilization as well. And so my experience with the center has greatly enriched my academic journey, providing this chance for me to grow as a researcher and also as a migration scholar. So I get to enter this space, where you meet, collaborate, and learn from researchers and research partners who share my interests and enthusiasm in migration research. And so for me, if you're passionate about migration research and in shaping migrant outcomes in Canada and the world through research, I'd say this space is where you'd want to be. And aside, from us being this friendly bunch, we have researchers with diverse expertise and knowledge in migration topics in Canada and beyond. And our center is global in reach and perspective. And so it brings Canada to the world and the world to Canada. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the number of stipends varies. Usually we give about, Jess, how many would you say, between 15 and 20 stipends altogether? There's more stipends. Yeah, there's slightly more stipends for master's students than for PhD students. The stipends are administered almost like a paycheck that you would get every 2 weeks. And they start in September. So we fill out all the forms. If you're awarded a stipend, you're notified probably by, I would say, early May. And then we process all of your paperwork over the summer, and then you would get your first stipend biweekly payment around mid-September.
That's a really good question, Gazal. You do have a diverse background. Since you're applying to the digital media program, it depends on the type of research that you would want to then pursue. If you're coming in as a master's student, you would have to, the parts of the requirements of the applying for the stipend are that you do a research paper. So a master's research paper, you will hear people saying MRP, MRP. It refers to master's research paper if you are in a master's program. And the topic of your research has to be related to migration. So if you're in the digital media program, perhaps you want to look at migration narratives for refugee individuals from Guatemala, for example, and you're going to maybe take pictures and create your master's research program and write a book on those or do qualitative research on it. So I'd encourage you to apply to that program, the digital media program, and then align yourself perhaps with the citizenship and participation theme, because that refugee status and the stories tell a story about how these refugees move and how they integrate in the Canadian community well. If there's a health component to the research, you can also apply to the health theme. If there is a place and lived infrastructure type of theme to your work, you can then also apply to place and infrastructure, since I see that you also have an architecture background. I'm not too sure what you're interested in, but if you're looking at architecture and media in relation to immigrants, you can then go to place and infrastructure, or whichever you think is the stronger of your research, whether it's citizenship and participation or place and infrastructure. Another good thing to do if you're quite unsure right now is to reach out to the theme leads for each of these themes. So for place and infrastructure, it's Dr. Bilal Farooq. And for citizenship and participation, it's Dr. Triandafyllidou. You can send them a paragraph or a little summary of your research to say, I'm thinking of applying to the scholarship. Does this fit within your theme? And they would be happy to get back to you. You can also reach out to Jessica if you do not want to reach out to Dr. Farooq or Dr. Triandafyllidou. Jessica's contact, I've just put it in the chat there, and send us your questions. We'll then forward them to the right person and give you answers. We're pretty good at responding. Within 24 to 48 hours, you should get an answer from us. If you're a PhD student, the same thing applies. When you first come in, you're going to be doing your classes for the first 2 years. Then you decide on your research project that you're going to be doing after the first 2 years. And you might have an inkling or an idea. It might change, but try to fit it within the 4 themes that we talked about, which I think for you, the ones that closely fit are citizenship and participation or place and infrastructure.
I think that's totally fine. I think that your 2-page letter is really, really key, because that's what gives you the space to demonstrate kind of your interest, what you've done so far. I would say it's probably a good idea to look at our website, look at who the Bridging Divides researchers are, kind of identify someone who's aligned with your area of interest, and perhaps even reach out to them and have a chat with them, and see if there's somebody that would be willing to co-supervise with you. You don't have to have a supervisor that's Bridging Divides, but you do have to have, if your PhD supervisor is not a Bridging Divides researcher, you will need to find a co-supervisor.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. My one supervisor, Rupa Banerjee, she is a Bridging Divides researcher, so I lucked out there.
There you go. So you're all good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for your questions, Darby.
Yes, so the professor that you then choose to supervise your work has to be under the Bridging Divides research program, but we don't necessarily cover all programs at Toronto Metropolitan University. We are open to you're applying to a program, perhaps, let's say you're in public health. You apply with Josephine Wong, who is a professor in nursing, maybe who does not have some public health experience or as much as you'd want to. You can then talk to Professor Wong and they can you can then identify a professor in public health who can co-supervise, whom you can be co-supervised with by Professor Wong and the professor from public health. So we do allow co-supervision with professors from other fields that we don't have on the team at TMU. Yes, you definitely can. And Dane, who's on the call right now, who's one of our stipend students, can attest to that. He is a specialist in cybersecurity, but is aligned with the Bridging Divides research program under the Employment and Lifelong Learning theme. So your AI research will be in in an area that is not just AI. So that area that you are investigating or applying this AI research to is the area that you would then apply to. So the most closest OYB that is to your research is what you apply for. So I know people who do AI in health, AI in employment, and AI in the different other fields that we have. Just pick the one that's closest to home or that feels that it's most aligned to you. You can apply as an entrance student if you haven't joined TMU. The way that you apply is you first apply to your program. Then you also apply to our stipend as well. We communicate with the program in terms of if they accepted you and have we accepted you. Then we coordinate with them in terms of the allocation of the stipends that we give out. You can only apply if you're in your fourth year, if you're an existing student at Toronto Metropolitan University, because we do not accept transfers. We cannot vouch for your record where you were working. We do not know your research record or what research you were working on. That's why we try to avoid having students coming in as transfer students. But once you're here and maybe you're accepted off cycle, which means you're not starting in the fall semester and you start in January as a first year student. When we come to the next application cycle, you can then apply as a second year student. And if your research aligns, we'll award you the scholarship for PhD from that second year until you finish. So you'll have 3 years worth of the scholarship. So all of them are 4 years. Regardless of when you join us, we'll just count the 4. If you're in your fourth year, we might give you something that is called a completion scholarship, which means you only have 1 year of funds. We recognize that you've done all this work and you're just wanting funds to complete, and we do offer those as well. So only the MRP is acceptable in the stipend. What I would advise for you to do is to reach out to your program, let them know that you're considering applying for our stipend, and ask if there's an option for you to complete with a master's research project instead of a capstone project. We found out that some programs are flexible to accommodate their students who do want to explore a master's research paper. And students in some cases end up doubling up. The master's research paper has elements that you can take out and use as components to complete the capstone project, and also still use it as an MRP or publish the work that comes out of it if you're then interested in the research components of the work. Yes, so if you apply for funding elsewhere, let's say you apply for the Bunting doctoral fellowships, for example, and you end up being awarded $20,000 for that fellowship, you can still apply for the Bridging Divides funding, either master's or PhD. We will review your application. If your application is strong, you'll be awarded funding that is a top up to your current funding that you obtained. So the decision of how much the top up will end up being lies within the Bridging Divides selection committee. But applying for other funding does not preclude you from applying for the Bridging Divides the funds as well. So apply for both. If you're thinking, I want to apply for a Banting Fellowship, do that. Then also apply for the Bridging Divides Graduate Student Stipend. You just need to then communicate with us when you have received the other funding so that we'll offer you a top-up and release a bit more funds for other students whom we can welcome into the fold who also have applied so that the funds go a longer way. The stipend that you receive, if you have applied for it for the master's program, it is for 2 years when you apply as an entrance student. If you apply as an existing student in their first year going into their second year, we cover you for the second year or for you to complete your master's program. For PhD students, the stipend is valid for 4 years. For entrance students, and we renew it each year, which means you continue to have funds within those 4 years. If you're a current TMU student who applies in their third year, for example, for the PhD one, who will give you funds or will award you funds for 1 year to complete your PhD. So it just depends on the year that you're in for your PhD, will complete the rest of the 4 years. If you're in your first, you get 3 years, second, 2 years, third, you get 1 year of funding. The stipends are such that they see you to completion. So if you apply for an entrance master's, we offer it for 2 years. So you're covered for the whole 2 years you're doing your program, and most of the master's programs are 2 years. When you apply for a PhD, we offer the funding for 4 years. So you're covered for the whole 4 years that you're doing the program. Unfortunately, we do not fund any extra years beyond the 4 years. If your program extends beyond those 4 years, you'd then have to apply for different other sources of funding. Please, please, please do not hesitate to reach out to Jessica, myself, Maggie, Lina, Apuva. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer those. When you write your statements, please make sure that you're addressing how your topic is related to migration. Also make sure that you're aligning with a theme. We will be impressed if you have done a bit of research to find out what our scholars or our researchers are studying, and if you mention whom you would like to work with for your potential research project. So make it the best application that you have ever written, because it is a competitive process. We do receive a lot of applications, and we offer them to the best candidates within each pool. So take some time, and if you haven't started, you might want to start to write your statement and maybe to reach out and have conversations with some of our researchers. So thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day.